Filming with 360 cameras is seriously a lot of fun, and it gets some of my most unique looking shots for my stories. So in this video, I wanted to share with you not only my favorite shot angles, but also my favorite 360 filming accessories, all for around 50 bucks, and they help me get all these different shots that you're seeing and get great results. What are my essential items for my smallest kit that I use for 90% of my filming? And then when I want to get some of those fancier angles and shots, what do I use to actually pull that off? The foundation here is Insta360's amazing action cameras. The stabilization is just so good that if you get the camera into an ideal spot, you just have endless potential for reframing and animating camera moves because of the magic of 360 filming that makes it almost impossible to see where the camera was mounted from. My essentials kit starts with the mouth mount, my absolute favorite mount, an invisible selfie stick, obviously, a shoulder pouch for a backpack for putting the camera into with a towel on a tether inside, soft towel, good for cleaning and drying off the camera. The X3 with the 256 gigabyte SD card and the neoprene sleeve. And then lastly, the thing that I'm probably most excited about in this entire video is the new magnetic backpack strap. So this thing is so awesome, and the joy that I get out of using this thing is totally disproportionate to its size. The whole system can just stay together on my shoulder strap, use it immediately. It is so awesome. I've personally bought 3 of these already to put on my various different backpacks. My extended essentials list includes a MOTO mount clamp, a 1/4-20 mount for going in my trekking pole, a quick release magnetic adapter for also attaching to action mounts, a battery case with a lid so the batteries don't fall out, a unicorn mount for the top of a helmet, and also a 1/4-20 rod extender to make stuff like this a little bit longer. A small selection of these spring-loaded ratcheting metal screws so that you can really tighten things down and also put the lever wherever you want it. And then to go along with that, a wrench. And of course, a bag to just put all the stuff in, or a case, or just kind of anything. Counting things up, I think we're already far past the number 10, and I've got at least 8 more to go, other different things, some really quirky ones, some ones that I'm quite excited about, and I also want to be showing you how to use this and some mistakes that I've learned about how to get better results with this various assortment selection of accessories. If you want to keep track of all of this, I put it all into a PDF, a guide, a list of all the things with links and notes, so that way you can keep track, and it's also got my best settings, it's also got image examples, it's also got export settings. It's got a lot in there. So if you want a guide, I just put it into a PDF. You can grab that in the description because I want it to be as helpful as possible for you. We're going to go to the pump track, and I'm going to ride the same loop over and over again using different accessories and show you what those different shots feel like. So we're going to go through them one at a time. And then towards the end of this section, I'll show you all the shots back to back to back to back, so you can get a sense what they all feel like in comparison to one another. And let me know in the comments which ones are your favorites. Mounting from the head is fine, but it's not my favorite. When you look at that footage, it doesn't quite convey the feeling of what it felt like for me to be doing that thing. So you want to do a filming angle that actually complements the feeling that you're trying to drive home in your story. So what I've found is having it higher up for a lot of the stuff I do, unless I'm on something really steep or going up something really steep, doesn't really give that perspective that communicates the feel that I'm going for. So for that reason, I almost always gravitate to bringing the camera further down. And my instinct was always to have it higher up, but often lower down is a way better perspective for showing the ground flying by, for showing what your arms and your hands are doing. So first up, let's go into a chest mount. You can finesse this angle by tilting the camera either up and down. And this is where you're going to want to make choices based off the terrain that you're riding on. If you're going down a really steep line, you might want the camera flipped all the way into the top position. If you're riding straight flat, you might want it center. Specifically on these pump track shots, there's a lot of pumping of the bike going on and the handlebars moving around a lot. So it can kind of be distracting if you have the camera too far down. So in this context, I think higher up looks slightly better. But if we were just going to be riding some normal mountain bike trails, I might choose to go slightly lower down. The best thing is you can change it as you go and reframe the shots later. This is the essentials kit packed down, and 90% of the time when I'm out on an adventure and I'm wanting to use the 360 camera, it's to get a point of view shot. And the fastest way I know how to do that without having to deal with rigging or mounting is mouth mount. This is my most used mount, and the reason for that is that it puts the camera in a really good spot for optimizing all of my favorite stuff about filming with a 360 camera for a point of view angle. Of course, you can just put the camera in your mouth. And this is how I used to do it a bunch until my camera assistant started complaining about all the slobber. because it's attached to your head and it's a little lower down than the higher spot here, I find the perspective makes it feel more what it actually feels like to be doing the activity. So it feels like the speed and what it felt like to actually do the run when it's mounted from slightly lower down. So something like this has rubber for actually biting into. You don't want to be thinking about like something in your mouth, and this helps you forget, and it just works. And what's great about the perspective of it is that it brings it down from the head angle, brings it closer to a chest mount angle because it drops lower than the mouth mount, but it's far enough away from your body that backpack straps and things flapping around don't enter into the field of view, but it's still low enough that it shows your arms from a really nice perspective. And I find what I get from this ends up being the kind of angle that I want from a lot of that, again, point of view, action camera perspective. If I'm doing something with my hands, if I'm riding a mountain bike, what you can do here, this gets a lot done. This mount is easily the best bang for your buck, and I wish I had bought it a lot sooner. And the reason for the towel is that I live in a rainforest, and it is absolutely critical to keep the lenses of the 360 camera both clean from dirt and water. So I am constantly wiping off the lens. The towel's on a tether, so I don't lose either of those things. And then the neoprene case also works well for kind of wicking away some of that moisture, and it's got the charge port on the side so that as you're using it throughout the day, you can keep running charge to it. And I find this neoprene sleeve sticks on really well. It's got the loop on the back so you can also tether it. And this whole thing staying together, I really like this refined small system. When I'm using the Selfie stick, it lives on the shoulder mount just right here for me to use at any time. So it just goes on and off, stays right there. You want it to be straightforward, ready to use at any time. That's what action cameras are for, and this setup lets me do that. Now, if you want that mouth mount perspective, but you're riding a motorcycle or you have a full face helmet on, this massive clip right here works brilliantly. A lot of the front of a full face helmet doesn't have a good spot for an adhesive to attach to, so you end up having to use a strap system. I really like the clip because you can put it on and off, and this works essentially really similarly to a mouth mount, but for helmet. This is another brilliant way to mount the camera in kind of my favorite spot. Okay, so I wanted to take a moment to address that I should have been using the mobile app a lot more when I started out. I used to exclusively edit the footage on my computer, but the truth is the app has gotten really, really good, both for confirming your shot angles as you're out actually filming, because believe it or not, you might want to make some adjustments. But then immediately after recording the clip, you can pull it up in the app, decide on the field of view, deep track your subject matter automatically, and then export it to your camera roll, all in a matter of moments. This has made creating vertical content a lot more fun for me because you can export the vertical frames very easily and then also still have your horizontal frames for the actual YouTube or long form projects that you're working on. And one of my favorite updated features here that they've really improved is the motion blur tool. So I've been reprocessing some of my old footage for my 360 guide, and adding that motion blur feels like one of the missing pieces to really drive home the feeling that I'm going for when I use these cameras for point of view shots. And I love this for biking, snowboarding, anything fast moving, cars. It looks awesome. Often on the drive home, if someone else is driving, I can export out several clips, edit it to music, and upload it by the time I'm home. And then that's just a fun way to share a thing that we got up to that day, and it doesn't become all this extra. I want to thank Insta360 for sponsoring this video. Obviously, a ton of the accessories that we are using are actually made by Insta360 themselves, but more importantly, the actual cameras themselves. I've got an exclusive link for you down in the description for if you want to pick up an X3, you can get a free accessory along with it. That's pretty fantastic. Make sure you use my link in the description. Thanks Insta360 for sponsoring this video. One of my favorite party trick mounts for just a shot that looks really unique and gives the viewer sometimes a sense of how in the world did they capture that is the unicorn mount. The essential here is that you mount to the top of your helmet. You don't want it to the front, you don't want it to the back, because you want to be able to flip this mount from the ponytail to the unicorn mount. Those are just awesome names for camera angles. And you can go back and forth between the two, which is what makes this really flexible. And now I filmed an entire 5-minute section on using adhesive mounts for the full in-depth masterclass guide walkthrough for my 360 filming. I definitely go into a ton more detail, but one quirky thing about the setup that we will dive into here is that for snowboarding, I mount mine off on an angle. And the reason for that is that when I'm snowboarding, my head is not facing straight down the hill. So I want the camera to be coming from behind me to show where I'm going. And I like that off to the angle, off to the side. It just ends up working the best for snowboarding. If you're skiing or mountain biking, definitely lined up straight. But the cool thing is that if you flip forward, you can get a really sweet reaction shot of someone's face as a point of view of their expression as they're maybe doing something scary. And I learned this from when I was filming on Amazing Race here in Canada. All of the action point of view shots were off to the side like that because it's a more flattering perspective than just straight on someone's nose with a wide angle camera. When you have the camera mounted to this, you notice it. So I personally wouldn't use the unicorn or the ponytail mount if I'm doing something that's at the limits of what I enjoy doing. Like I'm not gonna go do my biggest drop with a setup like this because you do kind of feel it on your helmet. What you can do is attach some counterweights to an action cam mount. So if you have it behind you, it will have the helmet sit more stable on your head. And this becomes especially helpful if you're gonna do my next little unsanctioned tip here. You're entering into territory where you're willing to break your stuff. So just don't cry home for warranty if you do this. But I like using these extension tubes all over the place. Sometimes 6 inches makes all the difference. It's a good average 6. Basically, that further duration from the body allows you to get a little bit of a perspective that shows just more of what's going on, especially then when you flip to the front, you can see more of the person's perspective. You can see more of their face. So don't send me any notes from your chiropractor if you're complaining about your neck because you put on this heavy weight on your head. And I don't want to hear about it. This is just my experience. You do whatever you want to do. Another awesome accessory that I've just started using is these magnetic quick release mounts. I got these for the Ace Pro and they work fantastic for that, but it's cool being able to just swap through the different cameras that might be in your arsenal. So I'm using it right now on the 360 camera. It allows you to, while you're wearing a helmet, quickly put the camera on. You can take it off. This is really awesome. And it's got a special feature up its sleeve, which is these tabs on the bottom for action camera mounts. So I used to use the Cage because the Cage has these action camera mounts at the bottom. But now that I have this mount, I use these tabs now a bunch whenever I want to attach the camera to just these quick action camera accessories because that's a really sweet, easy thing to do. Let's dive into a chapter all about mounting physically to your mode of transportation, to your vehicle. Often in the adventure stories that I do, the thing you're traveling on is a character in the story, and getting great perspectives of that is really important to me. And the absolute best mount, they updated the motorcycle mount. This thing is my favorite clamp. So of course I don't use this just for motorcycles. I mount this to anything. The thumb screws are really big. You can really torque it down. The surface area is bigger. It locks in really good from the pivot point. So you can rotate as you would hope so from one screw. And then you can also do angle adjustment and then really clamp down. So you can do the camera directly to here on a handlebar. You can use a short extension tube. You can put an actual action stick directly onto this and mount it off a handlebar. And this by far is just the best quality mount. And the reason for this is, I want to touch on this here in the vehicle section, but I've been really impressed with this with Insta360 in specific, because you might be like, Levi, you're only talking about Insta360 accessories, to which I would say yes, and it is a sponsored video, but also they've done a really good job of collaborating with companies who already make really good stuff. So you'll see right here, this is a PGY Tech collaboration product. So they actually worked with another manufacturer who makes great things to bring out this. And you'll see the suction cups in collaboration with Tilta, the carbon fiber poles in collaboration with Suray. I love that they don't feel the need to reinvent the wheel and try to find their own way of doing things. They see out there who is already making high quality stuff, and then they collaborate with them to bring it to the Insta360 marketplace and bring the accessories to everyone. And they've listened to feedback and then improved things. So that's just kind of a tangent on that, because especially when it comes to mounting to vehicles or moving objects, you don't want to do that with poor quality things. So this single clamp right here becomes my most used clamping device. To be fair, on a round, perfectly round surface, you can get it really tight, but if you're bumping on stuff, you will still get some drift. And that's where did I put it? That's where the ski strap comes in play. So what I'll do is I'll use this ski strap to create sort of a dynamic suspension support for the actual mount itself. You can go around the pole and then around another anchor point back here. There's always something that you can strap it to, tighten it down, and it will dynamically respond so that way it's not fixed, because fixed things on moving objects is tough. They have to be really fixed not to move. So having this little bit of dynamic support I find really just helps. And then you can also use this for some other things I'll explain in a moment. A pro tip here is that if you have a vertical surface to mount to, that will almost always work better for you because you're not going to get the same drift this way if you're mounted to a vertical object. If you don't want to use a ski strap and you do a lot of moto vlogging or moto mounts, they actually sell a dedicated support mount. That also might be a good accessory to look into. Say ready, this ready?
Ready.
Okay, dropping in.
Dropping in.
Should we go over the bumpy line?
Yes! Yippee!
We're going so fast.
Whoa! Yay! Go, Daddy, go!
Thanks, Ember.
Oh, you can do it.
Here we go. Should we go faster?
Yes.
How fast?
Super fast.
Here we go. Here's the corner. Oh, good lap, buddy.
Yeah.
High five. Now, vehicle filming is uniquely difficult, especially if you are filming alone. It can take so much time just to set up a tripod on the side of the road and drive by the camera, pick it up again. And if you are fortunate enough to have a second person with you to film drone shots, this can just be very challenging to actually be driving on roads because a lot of roads you simply can't fly drones on. So this is where using 360 cameras just really let you get amazing shots that kind of blow people's minds. They don't know how you captured them. In fact, they keep accusing me of, when I'm filming alone projects, that I'm not actually alone because there's an FPV drone following me. That's how cool some of these shots can look. So let's go to the basic intro level here. Of course, you can put a selfie stick out the window. We'll talk about that later. But if you want to mount it to the outside of the vehicle, so you can take a single suction cup, mount it to your hood, mount it to a window, put the camera to a spot, and then you can do animated camera moves from that single point. Now, if you want to level it up, this is a new accessory that I'm definitely breaking our $50 guideline here for this video, but I'm breaking it for good reason because this is just so awesome. So starting with, you can do the double suction cup car mount. For mounting, you're definitely going to want to follow the step-by-step instructions, but it starts with making sure you have a clean surface. When you actually attach the suction cups, you want all of the mount points to be loosened up so it's not rigid and fixed. You want them loose and movable. Find a good spot for the suction cups. Push them down into the car, use the pump to start pulling the air out of the actual suction cup, and you'll know it's mounted good when you no longer see the white line come to the outside. And then you can kind of finesse the angle of the different mounts one by one. So just slightly tightening things. You don't want to over crank any one of them first, just lightly tighten each thing one at a time. I really like choosing an angle that isn't too high up, but more horizontally away from the car. I feel like that looks really awesome. And then just go driving. Feels like you're in a video game. You can do amazing animations of the camera because it's literally floating in front of the vehicle. If you're going to be driving on bumpy roads, vlogging roads, or anything that's going to be a bit more aggressive driving, maybe you're on a racetrack and you're doing some closed course drifting or something like that, you're definitely going to want the 3 suction cup. This third one really helps just lock in as a trifecta of a mounting point and get a super steady mount. Of course, this works best to mount in an area of the vehicle that's slightly darker, so that way when you're using the shot angle, you don't really see the shot mounts down at the car. But personally, I was mounting this off the front of my truck, and I think it looks fine. I mean, you can see it there if you want to look for it, but that's just one of the things that goes along with taking a shot that looks impossible and filming back at a car. Let's talk about some mounts and techniques that I use for filming the most active activities that I do. And there's some cool things that I've learned here most recently that don't cost anything, so I think you might enjoy these. For me, the most active often means snowboarding, and it depends on how aggressive the snowboarding actually is that will change some of my decisions of what I'm going to do. So for example, as I referenced earlier, Jacob is just an absolute shredder on a snowboard, and the stuff that he goes down is mind-blowing. And he often mounts the camera from his head, and that works really well because he's going down really steep snowboarding lines. For me, I'm not often snowboarding stuff that is that steep, so I often am more inclined to use the invisible selfie stick, and this works quite well, especially with the new magnetic backpack clip mount, because you can just be going about your day having fun at the ski hill, and the camera's right there to just pull off, quickly extend, film a couple shots, put it back, and it doesn't overwhelm your experience of snowboarding because you can just take it with you, pull it off, and it's awesome. But there's an upgrade here that I've learned that I really like. I referenced earlier about how when you use the unicorn mount, you definitely feel the weight on your head. So I wouldn't use that if I'm doing something at the limits of my abilities. What I would do here is just use an invisible selfie stick with a backpack. So you can do this in a lot of different ways. So you can get creative of how you actually want to attach it to your backpack. But what I like doing is putting it down the side of the bag, and then you can use that ski strap that I talked about earlier to kind of grip it there just in case you do something where the pole might go flying if it's not quite tight. If you have the kind of bag that has a zipper opening on the back panel, this is also a good spot. You can zipper it open, put the pole in there, and have the zippers meet at two spots. And this works extremely well. Jacob himself also uses this kind of mount, just putting it in his backpack, and I was messaging him to just confirm this, but he will use a backpack mount to show the third person perspective. But you can see he still has a helmet cam mount on, which you can combine into two awesome angles for whatever it is that you're doing. So now let's talk about getting a sweet version of this, but with using the new magnetic quick attach backpack strap mount. Well, first of all, you can just put your camera here and start recording if you want to film something with your hands. It's a cool way to kind of get a quick chest mount. But what you can do here is kind of a dual wielding Darth Maul lightsaber setup where you take a second selfie stick and put it on the top of the backpack mount. And what this does is it allows you to extend the camera past where it's actually mounted on your bag. Then you can use a ski strap around it to kind of secure it and hold it in place and lock it in there. And what you can do here is actually remove the bottom stick. So something to consider here is that you need something threaded into the bottom of this backpack mount in order to turn the mechanism inside it. So if you wanted to, you could just remove the stick for a while as you're doing this modified backpack strap mount. This is a mount technique that I'm really excited about because I love that behind the snowboarder look. And it's sometimes nice to just have your hands free from holding the selfie stick. Insta360 actually makes an official backpack mount, so you can strap it to whatever bag system that you're using and get that third person perspective. I personally won't be using this very much. And the reason for this is just the extra setup to get it mounted on your bag when you're out on a snowboarding day is probably not something that I'm going to want to spend time doing. And then also it's a big piece of aluminum because it's very sturdy. So it's quite heavy for the kinds of things that I do. I think this is still a very legitimate option if you want something even more sturdy and then also adjustable, because then you can turn the angle from side to side and you're not limited by whatever backpack setup you have. So if you're doing a lot of motorcycle stuff and you want something that's way more secure, the backpack mount might be up your alley. Let's finish strong with talking about selfie sticks. I've got a lot of thoughts here. If the mouth mount is the most common way that I mount the camera, the selfie stick is the most common way that I film with the camera. And for good reason. It's an awesome perspective and you can manipulate it, and it just works for so many different activities. I want to start by showing how I use this when I'm filming for most of my snow outdoor adventure videos. So I got this 1/4-20 adapter that screws into my adjustable trekking poles, invisible selfie stick. This one's the action stick. So for most of the day when I'm out there filming, this is kind of my magic wand, my Gandalf staff that I use. So this obviously extends out into my trekking pole. And then while I'm out there, I can quickly extend this all the way out. And then I've got the extra length of my trekking pole to get some really awesome perspectives. Because if the invisible selfie stick looks cool at its default length, for every foot that you get it further out, it looks more and more like a drone. So I really like this in combination, especially when I'm moving through snow, because I can just have this right at the ready the whole day. I can take the trekking pole, slam it into the snow so it sticks up vertically upright, put the camera at whatever height, I can walk by it, come back, and it works as a tripod, especially when you're in snow. The problem here is that with the default length, you're balancing with the weight of the camera for what the average person wants to use and what's reasonable for doing activities. And most people don't want to feel a strain on their wrist as they're using a selfie stick. So there's a middle ground of usable length for comfort of actually being able to easily use it. But if you're like me and you're okay to train some wrist action to get the best shots possible, I like the extended length. So I really don't mind snowboarding with a further out stick. Another thing that I've kind of stumbled into is that I often take this Ulanzi light stand with me on my shoots, but this is the light stand that I carry with me anyways. And I realized at one point that the center column comes out, and this right here ends up being a brilliant selfie stick because it's super sturdy. I love the lock collars, and it is the perfect length for getting that extra little bit away. So I use this all the time. So this ends up becoming my favorite one to hold on to. And then the action stick ends up becoming my favorite to be lightweight and fast, and then also attached to other things. And between those two, I end up getting most of my bases covered. I forgot a really important addition here, and that is the biggest one of them all, the extended stick. This thing goes so far. You can get the camera incredibly far away from you with this one, and man, this thing is so sweet, again, for getting those drone style shots. I saw this guy Pabs on Instagram who was doing these really cool over the shoulder transition shots. So that's something I've been experimenting with. I tried to do a couple while driving. It's hard to fight the wind as you kind of like tilt the camera from the back to the front. But if you do an animated camera move with some motion blur and change the perspective, it genuinely looks like a drone just flew over you. Well, not when I did it. It doesn't look as good when I do it, but when Pabs did it, you should go follow him on Instagram, because I mean, the shots that he has, some of the best snowboarding footage with 360 cameras, that he's just constantly posting amazing clips. Last but not least today, we're going to cover the sketchiest accessory of them all, the most unsanctioned, the most likely to send you to the chiropractor, and that is the helicopter spinning camera unicorn of death shot, where the camera spins around. I only just got this. It's some random accessory from Amazon. I remember seeing a shot like this in a mountain bike film growing up, and I always wanted to do one of my own. So I've only just been scratching the surface. It feels so heavy and janky when it's on your head like this. Yeah, there's a lot of ways that it can go wrong, but I mean, if you get it spinning as you're doing your thing, you get built-in different angles, and then as your body moves with the G-force, the camera will move in the other direction. So you end up getting, I mean, it's honestly a really cool way to be filming. It's incredibly risky, and I'm not going to recommend that you do it, but if you like experimenting and trying different things, this spinning accessory might just be up your alley. The circular motion of kind of like rotating your head, this sounds like a great way to break your neck. Basically, I think I could get better at like getting it going, but then you've got wind to deal with. So I don't know, it's kind of a specialty shot that's kind of unique. If you're curious about how to put all these accessories together into your actual approach of filming to get a cinematic result for your story, I highly recommend my 360 guide that is coming out, because there's so much to cover and so much nuance of how best to use these tools for elevating the craft of storytelling in the adventure videos that we make. I think you're gonna like it. I think you're gonna like the PDF guide. I think you're gonna like the discount code from Insta360 down below. That's gonna be it for this one. The video, if the guide's up, it's gonna be right here. You should totally watch it. Remember, life's better when you make stuff. Peace.